Emilia Clarke reveals she nearly died of a brain aneurysm in early Game of Thrones days. To speak of Daenerys Targaryen is to speak of strong, fearless and fair characters. Especially when, in the Game of Thrones universe, these qualities seem to be overshadowed by the countless plans of betrayal engendered by ambitious and petty characters. But the resilience of Daenerys was not always shared by the actress who gave life to her in the series. When all my childhood dreams seemed to have come true, I almost lost my memory, and then my life. That's how Emilia Clarke, 32-year-old, revealed this Thursday, March 21, in a text published in the magazine The New Yorker, the two moments in which she felt losing everything she had conquered. In 2011, after finishing the recordings of the first season of the Game of Thrones, Emilia Clarke did not want to believe in the luck that she had. She was following her dream of being an actress and was now inserted in a circle she did not know but which, she quickly understood, and could be very demanding and exhausting. To relieve stress, I was doing physical exercise with a personal trainer. After all, she was a television actress and this is what the actors do. On February 11, 2011, Emilia was in the dressing rooms to prepare for another training session when she felt an intense headache that was different from all those she had ever had in life. I was so tired I could barely put on my shoes. When I started the training, I had to force myself to complete the first exercises until I could no longer do it. I told my personal trainer that I could not take it anymore and we paused, she says. From the training gym to the changing rooms, the path was made in a helpless way to the extent that the actress dragged herself there. When I got to the hot tubs, I got on my knees and felt violently sick as that intense pain only seemed to get worse. In a way, I knew my brain was damaged, recalls the actress. In order to try to counter what was happening to her, she tried not to think of the pain and nausea. She refused to be paralyzed, wiggling her toes or trying to recall some of the dialogue from the script of the Game of Thrones. There was little she could do, but at the time it served her comfort that it would pass. It did not happen, and after arriving at the emergency hospital, the news of the diagnosis did not seem to offer any kind of resolution. Emilia had suffered a type of aneurysm to which about 1/3 of people did not survive. For patients who survive, the immediate solution is to undergo surgery to avoid further complications, but that was not even granted. The operation lasted 3 hours but it would not be the first or the worst that Emilia would suffer. At the time, she was only 24 years old. After a few days of recovery, a nurse had begun the first tests on the actress. The purpose was to assess whether there had been complications during the process and ask her full name. My full name is Emilia Isabel Euphemia Rose Clarke. But at the time, I could not remember. Instead, out of my mouth came meaningless words and I panicked. She had never been so afraid as she had been that day. I saw what my life would become and I thought it was not worth living. I was an actress, I needed to remember the script and now even my name I could not remember, she revealed. As a result of the trauma she had suffered, the British actress was now unable to remember whatever it was, to speak or to perceive written language. My mother had the gentleness of trying to convince me that I was perfectly lucid, but I knew I was languishing. At my worst, I asked the doctors to let me die. A week later Emilia regained consciousness, knowing who she was and where she was, and everything seemed normal. She was told she had another aneurysm that could burst at any time but was dormant at the time. But between the end of the second and the debut of the third season of the Game of Thrones, she was forced to a new operation. The aneurysm had grown in size and its removal was mandatory. The various doctors who accompanied the case promised her a relatively simple operation of only 2 hours, but when she woke up, she screamed in pain. The operation had failed. I had had severe bleeding in the brain and the doctors told me that there was little chance of surviving unless I was operated again. Contrary to what had happened earlier, this operation had to be done directly through the skull and the recovery period promised to be more painful. I left the operating room with a drain coming out of my head. Part of my skull was replaced with titanium, and the scar, which at the time I did not know was not going to be visible, ran from my ear to the scalp. I spent a month in the hospital and lost all hope. I could not look anyone in the eye and I had several terrible panic attacks," she continues. Currently, Emilia Clarke is fully cured and has had the experience, together with several companies in the United Kingdom and the United States, create a charity to provide treatment to people recovering from brain damage. "I know I'm not the only one. Many people will have suffered more than I and without access to the treatment that I was so fortunate to receive. I am very grateful and I am happy to be here and see the end of the story of the Game of Thrones and the beginning of other projects that may arise," she writes. The new and final season of the Game of Thrones arrives in April through HBO and the Sci-Fi Channel.